today we are talking about the newest addition to our fleet here at the fire department, and that is our Squad 2. Squad 2 has been part of the fleet for many years. We actually, part of the truck as you see it sit here, actually is 20 years old. The body in the back, where all the equipment is at, is actually refurbished. So as we're looking to, as we do with every other piece of apparatus, it has a lifespan. It goes beyond its service use. So then we look to either buy new or we look to refurbish it. So this truck is unique in that it has new components and it also has refurbished components. So the chassis is brand new by Pierce Manufacturing out of Appleton, Wisconsin. They also did the work to refurbishing an existing body that was built by Salisbury Fire Apparatus that's out in New York State. And that, like I said, that component is over 20 years old. So they took the body off the old chassis, went through the whole thing, new wiring, a little bit of body work. The body was in very good condition. That's why we were able to reuse it. And new paint and everything, and then married onto a new Pierce chassis. A lot of fire department manufacturers, you can go with a commercial chassis. So like you see driving around out on the road, International, Freightliner, Kenworth, and we do have some commercial chassis as part of our apparatus. This is a custom chassis. This is specifically built by Pierce for our needs for the squad. So we go through a set of, essentially it's a design process. We sit down with a set of plans, go through those plans, and then those plans go to the manufacturer for the build. When the squad committee sat down, we looked at our options when it comes to replacing it. You have the option of all brand new, or you have the option of doing a refurbishment. This vehicle actually has a couple components that have been reused from the old squad. Like I explained before, the actual chassis is new. The body in the back is reused, but we also reused the engine, the transmission, and the rear end as part of a cost savings. That did help out with keeping the costs down for this project because we were able to reuse some of those components from the old squad into the new squad. This cab actually has 3 doors where our older cab had 4 doors. With 4 doors, you can have the firefighters that are sitting in the back of the cab enter on each side. The unique thing about this cab is that it only has a rear firefighter door that goes into the back of the cab. And the reason we did that was to make more usable space in the back of the cab for different operations. So, for example, we just don't respond to fires anymore. We're pretty much an all hazards response now, meaning that in the past, fire department did exactly that, responded to a lot of fires. Well, with prevention, with fire resistant materials, with a lot of buildings now having sprinkler systems and fire detection systems in it, the number of severe fires has significantly decreased. But we are responding on a lot of other types of incidents. Mass casualty incidents, sometimes we have technical rescue type of incidents, and definitely responding on a lot of emergency medical type of responses. So that's why I say we're not just a fire response, we're an all hazards response. So that's what this truck actually helps us out significantly when we respond to these different types of incidents. So a squad, if to kind of put it into a layman's terms, is essentially the Swiss Army knife of the fire department as far as apparatus. The only thing this thing can't do is pump water. It doesn't have a pump on it like our pumpers. Here's your driver. Driver's primary responsibility is to essentially get you there safely. That's their main responsibility. Our driver is trained. They went through a lot of training to get our, not only our personnel, but this piece of equipment to the scene safely. So, driver's position, we also have a pack here for the driver that if needed, the driver is also a firefighter, can also pack up and approach the scene with the crew. As we talked about before, this cab's just a little bit different from the old cab in that there used to be another access door here for the firefighter to get on this side of the cab. We have taken that out. We've made more storage space for equipment that we need on scene. And then when we go inside the cab and look there, we have a usable workspace here that we can use on scene for incident command if needed. All of our equipment on here is either run by gas-powered, electrical, or battery operated. We do have some pneumatic tools on here. So we do have an air compressor, onboard air compressor that supplies air reels that we can use those pneumatic tools on. But it's primarily electric, gas, and battery operated. That's what a lot of our tools are starting to switch over to, are battery operated. Why is that? It allows us to use that piece of equipment pretty much anywhere on the scene. Like I said, we're not just responding to fires anymore. We're responding to a lot of different types of emergency scenarios. So battery operated tools, even the big extrication tools that we use now, are battery operated. So that allows us to move a lot more on the fire ground or whatever we responded to and utilize that tool much more. So everything from winches to fans for ejecting smoke from a fire scene, or if we have to supply air into an area, for example, confined space type of rescue situations, we have to supply air into that area. So that's what the fans are for. So they're multi-purpose. So when we arrive on scene at night, we do have a light tower on board. It is controlled by this remote. The light tower can light up both sides of the truck and has the ability of being raised, lowered, panned, and turned. So wherever we're at on scene, we can light up the scene with the light tower that's located directly above us on top of the truck. So this compartment, as you can see, we have a number of saws. We have 2 chain saws and then a circular saw, or chop saw, what we call it also. These saws are mainly used for venting at a fire. We can also use the circular saw for extrication purposes on car scenes, or also breaching walls at buildings if we need to. Here is what we call a positive pressure fan. This is mainly used on fire scenes when we have to push the smoke out of the building. So we have a couple different types of fans. Box fans are usually for ejecting the smoke. A positive pressure fan is pushing a lot more air into the area and pushing the smoke out of the building. So we do have a couple lower compartments. We typically put the lower compartments in for items that might be a little bit heavier, so we're not lifting up. So we keep in mind of, the work ergonomics of a firefighter also, and the lifting stresses too. So heavier items will typically go into what we call underslung compartment. So here on each side of the squad, we have our larger cribbing for when we go to extrications, or if we have any other type of a tech rescue call where we need that cribbing. So some of the compartments you see look empty, but actually there is equipment that's assigned to it. For example, this compartment doesn't have much in it, but it does hold our water rescue equipment. Now, we're not dive certified or anything, but we do practice and have the equipment for surface water rescue and ice water rescue. So, for example, in this compartment, we'd have what we call our Gumby suits, our surface water rescue suits. We've done some training with them. They're currently drying, but we keep our personal flotation devices in here, or our life vests, and then the other equipment for water rescue goes in the lower compartment here. These two compartments essentially, and we tried to utilize every little bit of space on this truck. So in these areas above the wheel wells, they constructed compartments that carry extra SCBA bottles. So these are the bottles that we wear on our back in our SCBA, or self-contained breathing apparatus. They use a bottle. They can come disconnect that spent bottle and put a full bottle in and go back to work. The hooks that you see here actually go into a receiver, just like you see on the back of a pickup truck. We pin them in, and we can use this as an anchor point for doing any type of low angle rescue. So for example, car goes off a roadway, is down an embankment. Our firefighters will go down, start treatment, assist EMS with treatment. We'll be checking for hazards. We might be down there doing extrication. Another crew will come up and we'll set up what we call a low angle rescue rope line, so that we're reducing the risk of slips and falls of the firefighters going down the embankment with equipment. And then it also helps us when we go to bring that patient up safely from that low angle. So that's what these receivers are for, our anchor points that we can use, and they're all around the apparatus. So the last compartment down the driver's side has a lot of equipment in it. A lot of this is our battery operated equipment. Everything from little circular saws or little chop saws, that's battery operated, to other equipment that you use in your home. Everything from lights, for example, portable lights that are battery operated, to drills and other types of saws. That's in this compartment. We also have a toolbox that we carry different types of building type of tools, and also automotive type of tools. So sockets, wrenches, and that type of stuff. Because like I said, as we get on scene, this is our essentially big moving toolbox. So we've also have that type of equipment supplied on this apparatus. And hidden behind here is actually a couple different types of cord reels. Actually, one is a cord reel to supply electrical type of equipment, or if we need any electrical inside a building, we can actually run the electrical box towards the scene. And then, as I explained before, we do have some pneumatic tools, and we can operate the pneumatic tools from off the air line. So on each side of the squad in the back compartment has these two reels for us to utilize. The squad does carry a full complement of ground ladders that we can use on scene. And then we have our smaller compartment where we have our gas storage for our gas-powered equipment. We also have access to the top of the squad. So like I said, we tried to use every single space on this piece of apparatus for bringing equipment. So the way we access the top of the squad is by this folding ladder. And on top, there's a number of coffin compartments. We're starting to get into respond to a lot more technical rescue type of incidents. So a lot of our tech rescue equipment is stored in the coffin compartments up on the top. So we actually have a crane that we can put together on top, bring that heavy equipment out of coffin compartments, and then safely lower it to the ground. In this compartment is a lot of our confined space type of equipment. We are training up to respond to confined space type of incidents. We have the equipment, so now we're training with it. So everything in here is you see a lot of hoses, and there's also regulators. We can supply this air either from our onboard air compressor through our aerial, or we can also use spare SCBA bottles for this air equipment. So some of this air line will supply for breathing air, and a lot of this air line also supplies airbags. The airbags are used in a couple different scenarios. Car extrication, if we need to lift a vehicle just ever so slightly to extricate the patient. It could be used at a technical rescue scene where we have to lift debris. And we have a couple different sizes of airbags. We have our high pressure airbags that are much smaller that we typically use on extrications out in the field. And then we have low pressure airbags, which are very big. So for example, semi tips over on the highway and we need to lift that semi trailer up. We will use the larger low pressure airbags that can take much more weight to lift that semi trailer up. In this compartment, you see a lot of round bags. These bags are filled with rope. So everything from tech rescue rope to search rope. Tech rescue rope, we have to keep maintenance on it, and we have to also keep what we call a rope log. So we use it, we keep a rope log as to why we used it. So for training, for example, we did training last night. That goes down in our rope use log book, that it was used for training and what type of training. And then after so many uses, that rope gets rotated out, we bring in new rope. So this is our main rope storage. Up above, I talked about our low pressure and high pressure airbags. Our high pressure, like I said, our low pressure airbags are much larger, so takes up a lot of space. Here is the storage for the low pressure airbags. And as like on the driver's side, utilizing all the space we could, once again, we have the compartments for additional SCBA bottle storage, and then other areas for the anchor points for our rope rescue. Our next compartment here, once again, this looks familiar, another set of low pressure airbags. But this compartment has a lot of our stabilizing and hand tools that not only are on this truck, but you'd also see like on a pumper or on our ladder truck. So for example, each of these boards can come out so that we can easily get the equipment off the board. These are Rescue 42 struts. When we arrive on scene of a car accident, this is one way that we stabilize that auto. Not only with the cribbing that I talked about, but we can stabilize it even further and make it even safer for everybody operating around that vehicle with the Rescue 42 struts. If you've ever been to the firehouse for Fire Safety Week, you typically see hand tools like this. Everything from different sizes of hammers, mauls, and what we call closet hooks, or also smaller pike poles, are stored in this compartment as well. In our last big compartment, you see this webbing. This is actually designed to help the equipment from shifting around so it doesn't lean up against the door, because if it does, we can't get the door open. We saw all the ropes. With Tech Rescue, you need a lot of carabiners and other different equipment to make up that rope rescue operation. So everything in these bags is all the other equipment needed for setting up low angle or high angle rescue. As well as our, this box holds the regulator and valves for our breathing air component for confined space and the needed hoses for that. In this bag is what we call the Great Wall of Rescue. What we use this for is we still have a lot of farms here in Fitchburg that during harvesting time, their grain, their corn goes in the big bins. On occasion, somebody might be working in the bin and get caught in that grain. We arrive, and this essentially is 8 big panels that we put around that person that's entrapped in there, and then we can start removing that grain from around them to extricate them from the bin. So I talked about low pressure airbags. This is an example of a high pressure airbag, much smaller in size, but this is what we use when we get on the scene of a car accident. A lot of times we don't have much room, that's why they're very thin. And when it comes to extrication, we move that vehicle just as much as we need to extricate the patient. So in the lower part of this compartment, we have a larger high pressure airbag. And then we, like I said, we have a couple different types of ropes that we carry on the rig also. Search rope for those areas when we arrive at, like, say, a commercial building that has a lot of warehouse area. When it's filled with smoke, we take the same precautions as we do going into a single family home. We have to maintain that contact to where we made access in. If something goes bad really fast, that search rope we follow right back out to where we entered the building. So that's why we have a bag with search rope. So this is our RIP bag. So you see there's a couple different bags here. The larger bag actually has an SCBA spare bottle in there and also an extra face piece. What's RIT? Well, that means Rapid Intervention Team. So when we arrive on the scene of a working fire, one team is specifically assigned to be at the ready if any firefighter loses gets disoriented within the building, starts getting low on air, or they get trapped inside the building. And then that team is activated to go directly to that firefighter in need. So in this bag, once again, there's a bunch of rope. So same thing as the search rope. They put this at the door where they made entry into the building. So when they do find the downed firefighter, they're not fighting to get back to that original entry point. They just follow the rope right back to where they entered the building. This is, like I said, has an extra air bottle, breathing air bottle in there, so that if the firefighter that's entrapped or down or disoriented and is short on air, they then start supplying his breathing air from this bottle in this bag. And then additional hand tools that they grab once they come off the apparatus. So we're back up to the cab on the officer's side or passenger side of the vehicle. As you can see here, there's 2 doors on the cab. This is the officer's compartment, and then the firefighters that ride in the back with their seats and also their air packs if they need them responding to the scene. So as explained before, the old cab had 4 doors. This one has the 3 doors. In that area where that other door used to be is actually a work area that we can use as part of the incident command team, or if it's large enough, we go to a unified command. You can get a number of individuals in here to be part of that unified command. It also is a large enough area that we need to get our water rescue equipment on. They can do that in here. If it's raining outside or during the winter, it's a controlled environment so that they can safely get their equipment on in a dry and warm area. We have additional batteries for our extrication equipment that are constantly charging and ready to go. We carry thermal imaging cameras. We also carry emergency medical equipment and then rescue task force equipment. So more ballistic type of equipment, helmets and vests. Officers' responsibility is for talking with the 911 center, letting them know that they're responding on scene. If they're the first arriving company, that officer has to start formulating an incident action plan and assume command of the incident. They then are starting to form how other apparatus are responding in the scene and where they need to stage once they arrive. So everything in this area is radios and then a computer. That computer essentially just gives us more information on the way to the scene about the call. So once again, the theme of the squad was to utilize every little bit of space that we could for equipment, even in the front. So on the extended bumper of the apparatus, you see essentially this box. In the box is all of our big extrication equipment. All this extrication equipment is battery operated. So as we use this piece of equipment, we've been using it for a while, as the battery gets depleted, like I explained in the back of the cab, we have a new set of batteries charged and ready to go so we can continuously use this piece of equipment on the scene. So it easily pops off and it easily goes right back on to continue this use of this equipment. And each battery, depending on use, if we continuously use it, lasts for about 30 to 40 minutes.